Try That Aussie Metal Guy here with Crannk, and today I'm having a chat to Dan Jackson and John Pescod from Cancer, Australia. Cheers, guys, for joining me, eh?
Yeah, no worries, mate.
I was having a look, man, and there's surprisingly a lot of Cancer bands out there, dude, eh? I was having a laugh. Yeah, I was having a laugh that Cancer doesn't discriminate, man, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we get that all the time. No surprise. So.
Yeah, but you're unreal, dude. I love the sound, you guys. If I'm gonna say, man, you're a fucking #1 Cancer in my books, man. One, because you're from Australia, and that black metal sound you guys have is absolutely unreal, eh?
Thank you. Yeah, we've always been fans of the depressive and DSBM genres, and I felt like with this record we were trying to, I guess, push ourselves a little bit further and try and add some different influences and be a bit different than the usual DSBM styles. So I think we achieved that pretty well. Yeah, wrapped with the reception and how it's come out.
Yeah, it's a great album, and you guys have been around for a fair bit anyway in the music scene as well. I had a look back with Dead Space as well for a couple of years of 2018, but Cancer started back in 2016. Can you tell me originally how that started?
Yeah, sure. I can kind of elaborate on that. So, what happened was I've been friends with Chris Gabauer, who is formerly the founder of Dead Space, and also known him for quite some while. Just through friendships and hanging around with him. We live actually only about a suburb away from each other in Perth, and I guess even earlier than that, I've got a YouTube channel where I do a whole bunch of black metal vocal covers called Blasphemous Libel, and that's kind of like how we met. Prior to that, and just through word of mouth, being Perth such a small scene, kind of developed a bit of a reputation for being able to do black metal vocals. So one of the other pretty big bands, black metal bands in Perth, Advent Sorrow, actually asked me around 2016 to fill in for a show where they were going to be supporting Inquisition in Perth. And, to be quite frank, shitting myself about actually playing that show. And the morning of the show that they were going to play in Perth, it got cancelled. Due to some personal reasons or whatnot. Keep in mind this was before all the kitty fiddling, allegations came out, which was about a year or two later. But when the news came out, I was really, really bloody frustrated. And Chris and I decided, let's go have a beer. I needed to let off some steam. So we went to our favorite, my favorite watering hole and most black metalheads watering hole in Perth, Joe's Juice Joint, on a weeknight. It's a dive bar that's like open till really, really late, really popular over here. And I was just saying to him, I'm sick of doing covers. I was at the time also in a side project band called Inquinimentum over in the United Kingdom, doing atmospheric black metal with them. And I said, I just want to play shows. I'm sick of doing covers and being a bit of a dungeon dweller. And he says, well, bugger it, let's start a band. And he went, that night we formed a band, and I was originally thinking, oh yeah, you're just taking the piss. And 2 days later, we had a lineup with Dan on guitars and Shelby on bass, Tom Major on guitars at the time, and I was like, "Fuck, we have a lineup." And within a week, we had written the Terminal EP, so it all just kind of eventuated really, really quickly. And from there, we just kept writing, and now you've seen 4 years later, we've got 2 full lengths and an EP. It's just gone really, really quickly.
Yeah, well, I consider this Opioid album the culmination of all those hard years of work. It's a great album, and the songwriting is top notch. The guitars, it's really, the more I dive into this, the more I'm getting back from this album. It's an amazing listen, man. Can you tell me a little bit about how Dan, how you started getting the guitar tracks and everything together, mate? What was that like when you started all that?
Well, just sort of, because when we started writing Opioid, John and I were playing in Dead Space, and we had just finished. Well, Dead Space had just finished recording. Well, I think we just either finished recording or released. We released The Grand Disillusionment, and then yeah, John, Chris, and I were talking one day, and we're just like, "Fuck, what if we did another Cancer album?" And the next thing you know, like Chris Dropboxes me 8 drum tracks. Like, here, man, I've written some drums for you. So he just throws me 45 minutes of drums, and I'm like, all right, well, here we go. And at the time, I sort of put the drum tracks in a digital workstation, and I just sort of lined them all up, and I sort of ran a guitar behind me, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll just play until something sticks. And at the time, I was listening to like a shitload of Dissection, a shitload of Emperor, like stuff like At the Gates, Bathory, Dismember. So it was like a mix of like sort of Swedish black and death metal. And then just every now and then I'd write something or play something. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck, that's pretty all right. And I sent it to John, and John's he's a music snob. He's got insane fucking ear for music. And I'd send him something. I'm like, John, check this out. And he's like, nah, it's fucking shit. Get rid of it. And I'm like, all right, well, cool, whatever. So I go back there, I'd write another riff. So I send it to him. He's just like, nah, it's shit. Get rid of it. And that went back. It wasn't always, nah, shit. Get rid of it. It's like, oh, it's okay. And then I'd change like 1 or 2 notes and send it back. I was like, hey, John, because there'd be riffs that I'd like, and he'd be like, no, that's fucking garbage. Get rid of it. So I'd sort of change like 1 or 2 notes, or I'd put like a little something behind it, and I'd send it to him. I was like, hey, John, the new riff I wrote, yeah, it's the same fucking riff. Oh yeah? He's like, yeah, no dramas, yeah, that's cool. And then that just sort of went backwards and forwards until eventually we had the album sort of fleshed out. And at the time, it was just we just had the music. There was no lyrical theme behind it. John had no idea how he was going to approach vocals. To be fair, I wasn't even sure whether I was finished with the guitars. So I originally just sort of wrote it, guitars, so I had 2 guitars, so lead and rhythm, and bass, like a fairly standard thing. And then I went back and I added some more melodies and some more parts to it and rewrote a couple of things. And then in the end, I sent it to John, and he shouted it for a bit. And it went backwards and forwards until we had the final product. And then there was the 2 weeks we spent like mixing it. So he'd come around, I'd come around after work, and we'd sort of sit at the desk and sort of mix it. And he's like, because there were certain bits in there, like for example, with track 4 on the album, Mind's Parchment, there was a number of harmony parts in there. Again, like sort of going back to like, like sort of Swedish sort of melodic sort of stuff. Like there's parts in there that I'm like, there's like harmony guitars in there that I wanted to sort of stand out. And I'd go there and like they'd sort of be more in the background. I'd be going to John's like, wait, no, bring it out a little bit. And he's like, you been listening to fucking Iron Maiden again? I'm like, yeah. He said, oh, guys. And then there's other parts that come in, and he's like, oh, it's fucking another one of Dan's Iron Maiden. Dan's on his Iron Maiden bullshit again. We'll bring that forward. And yeah, it was just like a good like 2 or 3 weeks of me just coming around. I'm like, wait, John, make this bit stick out. He's like, nah. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
you can see we as much as we take the music to it really seriously, for us as well, if we're not enjoying it and working together as good close friends, then there's no real point in it for us. So we've kind of always had that dynamic behind the scenes that, the music always counts and always comes first, especially for a listener. But, if we're not doing it, we're not enjoying it, then it's going to show as well. Anyway,
yeah.
The music.
Yeah, well, talking about that, you guys have played together, as you mentioned before, in a couple of bands and that. How did you guys originally meet in the scene and that, and kind of, create this creative partnership together? Because you seem to work so well together as well. Like I'm blown away by this Opioid album. I'll talk a little more too about the songwriting, but how did you 2 guys meet?
We were doing session vocals for with Dead Space. He rocked up to the studio, and he rocks up to the studio with his partner at the time. So I'm there with Chris. Like I was at university at the time, so I'm a registered nurse here in WA, and I was at university at the time. And Chris was like, "Oh, I'm at the studio. Come down, have a listen, have some beers. I want to be mates is coming down. He's really into black metal as well." And then I'm sitting there, and then bloody John walks in. He's sort of like real quiet. He's like, "Yeah, this is John. He's a little bit strange. So don't be." And I'm like, he sort of walks in. He looks hungover, and he's got bags under his eyes. He's got an Emperor shirt on, and I'm like, "Wait, this guy seems alright." And then
he comes in, it's like, yeah, he does a little bit of black metal singing, and then puts him in the booth, and then makes this fucking noise. And I'm like, all right, I didn't realize it was capable for a human to make that kind of noise. And I think after that, it was just every now and then we'd sort of hang out at Chris's place, or just go out and get beers. And
yeah.
Yep.
But then eventually, like around the time when we wrote Terminal, then Dan actually moved into my house, and you know, he was my flatmate for a good year and a half during some pretty crazy days. While he was going through a nursing degree and I was being a white collar office job, son. The best that's behind the scenes. And you know, after Dead Space dissolved, you know, I think, you know, we were very, very much keen to keep Cancer going as a two-piece, you know, kind of make it driven, you know, by our influences and our influences only. You might see the sound of Into the Heartless Silence and Terminal compared to previously, because, you know, all of like the music composition is purely driven by us, whereas on the last ones, you know, Chris had quite a huge contribution in those ones. So
Yep.
yeah, I think with this one, it's you know, definitely got a lot more, as Dan alluded to, those sweet mellow death influences involved. There's a bit more melody, a bit more harmony into it. But also, to do a concept album. Also to dial back the production, so it wasn't just your typical second wave 90s black metal with lo-fi sounding production. I wanted to have that a bit of music snob I am. I've got a pretty substantial vinyl collection at home, and I've always been a bit of a vinyl snob. So I get tired in this day and age of hearing a wall of sound production. So I really wanted to like take charge of that and go back to some of the same time use a production style where, you know, resembles analog plugins of like the 70s and 80s, you know, distresses and neaves and that sort of thing that you'd hear on those records. And also the, you know, just, you know, really dialing back the compression to where it's only needed, not just to make it sound huge in your face. You know, give the music, you know, dynamics and room to breathe. That is, I guess, the best way of putting it.
Yeah, man, that's unreal, dude. That's spot on, dude. And the songwriting is unreal as well. Can you tell me a little bit about the songwriting? Because you've got the depths there from The Child I Am coming down to In Memoriam, and that. Can you tell me a little bit about that process as well, writing the song lyrics for this?
So I've always been a sucker for poetry since I was a kid. Like I've always been pretty good at creative writing and poetry in general, but like in terms of formal writing, anything else, I'm bloody useless. So I'd rather give me a calculator or an engineering problem and I'll be just fine. But yeah, I've always been a sucker for poetry, and my girlfriend introduced me to a book about 3 or 4 months before I started writing lyrics for Opioid, which was the essays and memoirs of Thomas De Quincey, you know, which is the theme behind this book. And I was really, really impressed with just his imagery and also the concept behind, you know, what it would be like growing up in a taboo society of, you know, the 19th century in Victoria era England as an opium addict. You know, it was always kind of seen as like, you know, opium was like only something in the dungeons back there that the Chinese trade immigrants would actually use. It was very much taboo back then, and I thought it was a really cool concept to talk about addiction in that concept in that era, but also how it's still relevant today. And you know, everybody deals with addiction in certain ways, whether it be addiction to, you know, a typical beverage, or whether it be addiction
caffeine addictions.
Gambling, show, TV show, cafe, coffee. Yeah, so I think it's something as a as a depressive black metal band that everybody can connect to, and that's something I wanted to explore. And also, just being the sucker I am at poetry, it just kind of inspired me to write a concept album based upon this guy's life and his memoirs. So the whole idea, I guess, of this album is the first two songs, The Dreamer and the Eater, based off one of his books he wrote called Confessions of an Opium Eater. I think, Confessions of an English Opium Eater. So the first two songs are about to... It's right there. Yeah, it's right there. It's meant to kind of like document like the stages of his life, like what made him become an eater, and then from there through his addiction, the all the vivid nightmares and hallucinations he had. He was taking huge amounts. I can't convert it to today's amounts in terms of heroin, but it was off the charts.
Yep.
So that's the first intention of those two songs, is kind of to paint that, I guess, that context as setting as to this person's life. And then the Depths one, part 2 to 1 to 6, is based upon another set of essays he wrote called Suspiria de Profundis, which in Latin translates to Sighs from the Depths, hence why it's called Depths 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So each of those are meant to be just like capturing a snapshot of like one of those famous English literature, or actually study it. I think it's called Lavina and the Ladies of Sorrow. And that one, Danes of Affliction, is if you go back, changeable. So they get it.
Yeah, man, wait up. Net's just a bit unstable there. We'll just wait for the satellite to come back around.
I kind of ramble.
The short form of that is Englishman does heroin for the first time and has a fucking shit time while doing it.
Yeah, it's like the story of the ages, though, isn't it? They're still doing it, though.
Takeaway from the album is don't do heroin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's spot on, man. And it's poetic too, though. The lyrics, the way you've written it. That's why I wanted to ask about it, because I love poetry as well, and I was reading the lyrics for this. Sorry for my net there, but I was reading the lyrics for this, and it's something very poetic about the lyrics. It's just really, really cool, and it's you read those lyrics and go with it, and it brings in another aspect as well. It's unreal, dude, and the story and the poetry, man, it's cool.
Thanks very much. I place a lot of emphasis on that, and I think it's one thing. I think to write good music, people who are not essentially into even depressive black metal, but even just metal in general, can respect and appreciate. So I deliberately want one to write good lyrics, and two, to have those lyrics accessible to listeners, and so they can actually sit down and physically read it as they're listening. That's also the reason why an official video, because one, we haven't done it before, and two, I've had so many people say to me, they're outside of me, oh, I like this, I like the lyrics, I just don't understand what's being said. Well, here it is.
I had this said this the other day.
I don't like the screen.
Yeah, well, either way. So, it's a Taylor or a Taylor for all those.
Like that guy that's just like, any chance you could do a karaoke version? Like, I really like the music. I don't like the screen.
Oh, yeah, we got that comment on YouTube. That was great.
It's like,
No shit.
We'll just do a karaoke mix.
Yeah.
I had that same discussion as well. Exact same discussion. I was saying during a stream or something. I was saying, I was talking about a lyric video. I'm like, you ever have those mates that are like, man, I can't fucking understand what they're saying. It's like, there you go. Fucking listen to the lyric video. Fucking sing along. You'll be right, mate. And go from there. So what's it like, man? This coming out in August, this album. What's it like being bringing out an album like, you know, as well at this time? You know, you can't play any live shows at the moment. I suppose Perth's actually come back with some live shows, man. Have you got anything planned at all over there, or?
So in terms of, I guess, sales and so forth, yeah, I think, you know, most bands, you know, has been made pretty public, have taken the hit. Though I would say for us, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, because because we tend to, we have, I guess, you know, through Dead Space, you know, we've, you know, developed, you know, a few friends and contacts that people are aware of what we do through that space. So, you know, naturally there's people that are keen to hear what Dan and I could do, you know, away from the Dead Space thing. So there was that component. And yeah, I guess the other thing that helps as well is that, you know, black metal, especially in the depressive black metal part, tends to have a bit of a small underground, you know, cult following, where, like, you know, we're getting a lot of sales over in, you know, random parts of Europe and parts of North America, and a lot of streams in South America. So you tend to have, you know, a mixed bag from overseas that tend to loyally follow, like, any part of depressive black metal in that subgenre. So from that part, yeah, we haven't really been affected as much as I thought. In terms of live shows, well, yeah, obviously there's been, you know, cutback in those shows, but, you know, they've started opening up again only about a month or two ago in Perth. So we're starting to see live shows again. In fact, we got Slave Fest, I think, is on tomorrow night at Badlands, which is sold out. And it's got a huge lineup of WA bands. Yeah, Pathogen are coming. Yes, so it's, you know, it's all coming back. And people, with anything, from what I've heard from anecdotal evidence from other bands, it's funny. They've played shows since things have started opening up again, and they're getting huge crowds because, well, compared to previously, because people are just dying, you know, in isolation, craving to, you know, get back out and see live music. So yeah, we're hoping, Dave, Dan, and we're gonna, you know, intend to tap into that soon. We formed Cancer, you know, again, because I want to play live shows, and we haven't played any. We haven't played any in ages because of Dead Space. So, you know, that's something we definitely want to get our hands on later this year. We've got a few things behind the works that we're trying to plan. I can't say anything too much at the moment, but yeah, we're definitely keen. If any promoters out there want us on their bill, let us know, because yeah, we're all ears and we're keen as fuck to play, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely get Cancer on your bill, man. Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah, man, and fucking black metal, man. As you're talking about black metal with records and people buying merch, I find that a lot with black metal and the underground metal scene, that a lot of the metalheads are really cool at supporting the music scene and buying merch packs and pre-orders. It's like, you know, there's this niche of metalheads do a lot of it, and a lot of them are like guys like yourself and me that are just that keen about metal. So we're buying records, you know, building up record collections, buying merch and supporting the scene, because we realize bands, you know, really that's a good way to support away from the digital stream, not just hit your like and subscribe on Spotify or wherever people think, you know. It's like, if you like a band, fucking head over and head to the merch and buy a record, buy a shirt, buy the merch, because it all helps keeping bands like yourself going forward.
Yeah, I don't want to rant too much about this, because I've made it pretty clear publicly my views on streaming services, but I agree with you that, you know, the best thing you can do to support a band is to go to their shows and buy their merchandise. It's simple as that. You know, what it frustrates me in this world today that, you know, music has moved to the streaming platform, and, you know, it's really the people that win are the streaming services, or, you know, the big artists that have the power to actually negotiate those terms with streaming services. So yeah, you know, we're fans ourselves, you know, just like everybody else in this scene, not just artists. So, you know, I'm buying just as many records as anybody else out there. And I think, you know, that's what keeps the scene alive and keeps us all connected. More importantly, as a community, as much as that sounds it may sound a bit fluffy saying that. It's true. It's like we're a dying breed compared to the other genres out there, and we're never going to make money off it. And you're kidding yourself if you think you're going to make a full-time living out of this unless you're the next behemoth and able to market yourself to that extremity.
But I can market it.
Okay, too. And barbershops. It's just the way it is, you know. I'm an engineer, Dan's a nurse, for Christ's sake, and we're doing this as, you know, something that we love and something that, I guess creatively we want to, present, but also to be part of that community as well. So
yeah. Exactly. And with the digital platform, I'm going to say it again, shit, because when albums like this Opioid album and your albums, the best way to experience them is from start to finish and play the whole album. People are really missing out on that joy of when you put in an album, you go on a journey straight through from the first track right to the end and it closes. There's nothing like it. And you ain't going to get that just playing one track off an album. Like the best way to experience this Opioid album, get the whole thing and play it. And like headphones are good. I've been cranking it through my headphones as well this morning. You get that full experience and the sound of going through on that journey with you guys on this album.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's like we try to, in an audio sense, make it that way because I'm the same. 90% of my time I'm listening to stuff on headphones. It's not cranked up on speakers, and having stuff, that all sound and like a stereo experience, I guess, where the drums and the guitars all sit in different parts of the mix, is really, really damn cool. But I also agree that it's sad in this day and age as well that maybe I'm the geriatrical part and the vinyl snob in me is kicking in again. But that's also one of the reasons why I love vinyl, not just from the mastering and the dynamic sound of it, but the fact that it forces you to sit down and listen to a record, at least from one side, side A, side B. You can, if you want to drop the needle in between the two, that's, I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. It's I guess the magic of, a concept or the magic of listening to a record from start to finish is lacks these days, especially with streaming services, let alone trying to search for the artist you want sometimes. I mean, if you're trying to search us up on cancer, you get cancer bats, you get black fucking cancer, you get the UK cancer, Ukrainian cancer.
That's why you need to buy the bloody record, buy the album. You ain't going to have that problem, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Cheers, guys. This has been an absolute pleasure. Dan, John, we'll sign out, let you get about your day, guys. But before I do, last words, shout outs or thank yous you want to add in there?
Well, other than yourself, thanks obviously for arranging this. That's pleasure to talk about this and just like any form of exposure we can. So thank you so much for recording this, obviously, and to anybody out there that's already bought the record or streamed it or whatever, can't thank you enough for your support. It won't be the last you hear from us. We're definitely intending to play shows in the near future, that's for sure. And for those who haven't listened to us yet, check us out on Facebook, through Cancer Australia, or our Bandcamp through canceroz.bandcamp.com. And other than that,
in the meantime, wash your fucking hands and wear masks so we can play shows again.
Exactly.
That's it, Cancer. Absolute pleasure, man. Hopefully, new Dead, Northie. Let's get Cancer next year if we get this going again, man. That would be unreal. Get over for that. That would be really. Yeah, with Dead Space. Dead Space. I know, dude. I've got one here, one there. That's the shirt right here, man. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I reckon it was put off this year, unfortunately. So hopefully next year, man, with everything, all this Rona shit can fuck off. Everyone does the right thing, stay safe. We can all be back at gigs again.
The show where Xenobiotic and Earthrock wipe the floor.
Yeah, dude. Cool show. Cheers, guys. Absolute pleasure, man. Hopefully catch you at a gig once this is over. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, man.